This is chapter 27, verses 39 to 40. Permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made because they are oppressed, and surely Allah is able to assist them. Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, "Our Lord is Allah." And if Allah did not repel some people by others, cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques in which Allah's name is much remembered would have been pulled down. And surely Allah will help him who helps him, who helps Allah. Surely Allah is strong and mighty. The next verse is, and fight with them until there is no more persecution, and all religions are for Allah. But if they desist, then surely Allah is the seer of what they do. This is verse 8, chapter 8, verse 39. So let those fight in the way of Allah who sell this world's life for the hereafter. And whoever fights in the way of Allah, be he slain or be he victorious, we shall grant him a mighty reward. This is chapter 4, verse 74. Fighting is enjoined on you, although it is disliked by you. And it may be that you dislike a thing while it is good for you, and it may be that you love a thing while it is evil for you, and Allah knows while you know not. And the last one, this is chapter 8 again, verses 61 to 62. And if they incline to peace, incline you also to it, and trust in Allah. Surely He is the hearer, the knower. And if they intend to deceive you, then surely Allah is sufficient for you. He it is who strengthened you with His help and with the believers. 2 weeks ago, we started off and we saw that evil and sin started with the very creation. One of Hazrat Adam's sons, killed the other without reason because he was jealous. And the one who was being killed said, "I am not going to retaliate. I am not going to defend myself. I will let you bear the sin of killing me." And this debate, which is put in the Quran in terms of two brothers, has gone on since the very creation of mankind. What happens when you are subjected to injustice and tyranny? What do you do? How do you respond? One response is given in the Quran, that you say, "I leave it to Allah to decide." But then, when we come to the idea of a just war, because what happens is that if you let people usurp others' property and their rights and to kill them, what will happen is there will be complete chaos in this world. Even if we leave aside the question of countries, even within a country, even within a society, we have some means of making sure that the strong or the rich do not usurp the rights of those who are weak and those who are poor. Inside a country, you have a police force to stop people from robbing banks, from killing others, for usurping their rights and forcing them to do things that they want to do. And that was the first verse that I recited to you from chapter 2, verse 39. When are you to fight? Permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made. Now, many critics of Islam would tell you that Islam is an aggressive religion. It tells its followers to go and attack and fight others. That is not true. Islam is not an aggressive religion. But Islam is not a pacifist religion either. Islam does not, in words of the wronged son of Hazrat Adam, say, I leave it to Allah to punish you for my sin. Because elsewhere it says you have to fight. Because there are times when persecution is a greater sin, or allowing persecution is a greater sin than slaughter. So the first condition of a just war is that it is a defensive war. War is made on you. You are not attacking anyone. Permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made. So you are allowed to defend yourself. And then Allah goes on to say, who are the people who can rise up and fight and defend themselves? Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, our Lord is Allah. So here, what God is saying is that we should fight for the right of people to believe. Believe in whatever they believe to be the correct thing. You might say, it says here, without a just cause except that they say, our Lord is Allah. Well, that is referring to the people who were persecuted and prosecuted in Makkah, and they had to flee from there, first to Abyssinia and then to Medina. That is true. But then God tells us what the purpose of a Muslim fighting another nation or another people is. And if Allah did not repel some people by others, these are some people, the others are Muslims, cloisters, churches and synagogues and mosques in which Allah's name is much remembered would have been pulled down. Now here, the Holy Quran does not leave out any religion. Cloisters is any place where Allah's name is much remembered, regardless of religion. And then it goes on to specifically say, churches and synagogues. And it uses the term Allah. Synagogues, churches and synagogues and mosques in which Allah's name is much remembered. It doesn't say God, it doesn't say Bhagwan, it doesn't say Jehovah, it doesn't say Yahweh. So what does it mean? It means that there is only one God and He is the God of all religions. He is the God of Christians, He is the God of Jews, He is the God of Muslims, and He is the God of all others who remember Him in those cloisters. So you have to give a teaching in the terms of what people know and what people understand. And God here is saying that everyone has the freedom to believe whatever they want. It is entirely wrong to say that we should try and force people to embrace Islam. Because there is a hadith of the Holy Prophet, and if you take it literally, which says that even at the end of time, there will be people who would believe different religions. So there will be no time when humanity will be united on one belief. And the interesting thing here is, and it's a sad reflection on Muslims, at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, there was a monastery, and the Christians who worshipped in that monastery wrote to the Holy Prophet Muhammad and asked for his protection. And he gave them his protection. Now, to me, it means that to the end of time, Muslims are duty bound to protect Christians and their places of worship. Because our Prophet gave an undertaking that Muslims will protect Christians and their places of worship. There is another treaty with the Jews in which our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave them a guarantee that their places of worship, their religion, their followers will be protected by Muslims. And it seems to me that an undertaking given by the Holy Prophet Muhammad has to be carried through by Muslims for all times, whatever happens, regardless of the situation or circumstances. And what we see happening in many Muslim countries, like Egypt and Pakistan and Indonesia and so on, is against the not only the spirit but the letter of that treaty. And Muslims in those countries are not doing any favors to Islam or to the Holy Prophet when they behave in this way. Now you see here God specifically says, I have raised Muslims. Why have I raised them? So that every religion in the world is protected. So that the followers of every religion in the world are protected. So that the places of worship of every religion in the world are protected. That was the purpose of creating the Muslim nation. And that is why the Holy Prophet Muhammad gave these undertakings to the Christians and to the Jews. And there was a wonderful document called Misaq-e-Medina, the Treaty of Medina, which was between all inhabitants of Medina, Muslims and everyone else who lived there, those who worshipped idols, those who were Jews, and whatever they believed, which was that they live in this place and they're each other's brothers and they'll protect each other and they'll help each other defend Medina if Medina is attacked from the outside. So these things I mention to you by way of an example. Let's take an example. You're a pacifist, Hitler is around, so what do? You write him a letter. Dear Mr. Hitler, it's not very nice that you are killing all these Jews, but as I'm a pacifist, all I can do is write you a nice letter to say, please stop. You think Hitler would have stopped? You think if you wrote that letter, Stalin would have stopped from killing and persecuting the people that he killed and persecuted? No, this is mere theory. And it doesn't work. We know that. This is why the Holy Quran says sometimes persecution is worse than the slaughter. Because you let it develop and you let it develop and you let it develop, and what happened at the end? Where perhaps something could have been stopped by a few thousand people dying, millions died. But then the Holy Quran also says, if they incline to peace, then you too incline to peace. And if you think that they are trying to deceive you, still enter into peace with them. But leave it to Allah, and He will decide. So a just war is a war that is conducted to protect people. A just war is a war that is conducted to protect people's conscience, their freedom of expression, their freedom of belief, their freedom to propagate their own religion. And to conduct a war for any other reason is not a just war. You see, the problem that arises is this. Because we have this theory of nationalism, if someone does something wrong in England, it doesn't matter how wrong it is, most English will gather round and try and support that. If someone does something wrong in Russia, most Russians will gather round that person and try and justify what he does. It doesn't matter which country it is. Name the country and its people will gather round and try and support the wrong that its government or its military or whoever it is that it has done. Again, that is not an Islamic concept. God says in the Holy Quran, bear true witness, even if by speaking the truth it harms your mother and your father, even your parents. Now, if you do that, that is the first step to stopping persecution and injustice and cruelty in a country. Because your own people are standing up and saying, stop it, what you're doing is wrong. And the next step is then to go out and try and stop that persecution. There are three things that decide whether a war is a just war or not. The first thing, of course, is the cause. And the cause, as I said, has to be not because oil is found in that country, not because you want this political superiority on that country, not because you want to force that country to support you in some other way, but the only cause of a just war is that people are persecuted and you're fighting for their freedom of conscience and belief and to be able to follow and preach and propagate their religion. That is the first condition of a just war. But Islam doesn't leave it at that. It also goes on to define rules about how you're going to conduct that war. Because a war may be just, but it may be conducted in a way that it is unjust to the people against whom you're fighting. I will end here today, and hopefully next week I will wrap up the concept of a just war by looking at, if the cause is right and you need to fight, how you should conduct that war, and then see whether the First World War was a just war or not.